Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the July 24th City Council meeting. If you'd be kind enough to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Brigham.
Here.
Vice Mayor Russell.
Here.
Councilmember Walter.
Here.
Councilmember Bagby. Present. Mayor Paula.
Here. Okay, conflict of interest. Does any city council member have anything to declare?
The only thing is, it's in the minutes, in the consent calendar for approval. I recused myself on that item, the Patrick King location thing,
Okay.
so I can't.
Okay, so did you get that, clerk? Okay, so on the minutes, so do we want to take that separately, that item?
Are you abstaining from the minutes?
Just from the
Just that
minutes, which
one.
is item number 3.
If I have to, do I have to?
You could just verbally say out, with the exception of item 3 on the minutes.
Okay,
That's
so
fine.
that's how we'll do it. Thank you. Okay, agenda review. Any changes and or deletions to the regular agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Any person wishing to speak to the city council on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any item on the council agenda during that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Each person wishing to speak must come down to the podium when advised and speak directly into the microphone. There's a book down there. I'd ask that you sign the book, please, and your time will not start until that you sign the book. And each person will be limited to 3 minutes, and you'll have one time opportunity to speak under public comment. Would anybody like to address the City Council? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, everyone.
If you could take a moment and sign that book.
I already did.
Oh, thank you. All right, you're good to go. Thank you, Ann. And state your name for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Perry. I'm a resident of Cloverdale for the last 15 years. And I'd like to bring, actually I have 2 concerns, but my main one is the old winery at the end of the public walkway in the cottages. It's very popular, and I have had the last 3 weeks off, and I walk every day, and I know it's a magnet for individuals to go back there, especially young people, partying at night. It's dark, there's no lights, it's fairly remote, and it's a perfect place for people to gather without being seen. And early in June, I witnessed 5 young kids, teenagers, going back there, and I put in a call to the Cloverdale Police Department. Officer Rose responded, and upon his investigation came back to speak to me and said that he noted they were back there smoking pot. The thing is, you light anything, whether it's pot, a cigarette, the fire danger is incredible, and there's absolutely no lights back there to deter anyone. So on my walks, I'm like thinking, okay, the lights would be great, but I think also fencing off that area with the same type of fencing that surrounds the 2 water towers back there would be a great solution in addition to lights, to preventing people from congregating back there and causing any fire, which would be horrible, as we all know. And it's just something I think the city should definitely address, and address it as soon as possible. Is that my 3 minutes?
Oh, no, you still have another minute.
Oh, okay. My second concern on my walks, I've noticed there Hot Springs Road, 3 dead trees in the area that the city's responsible for. But come to find out from Hector, who responded back to me today after I saw him this morning, that they're not within the city's realm of responsibility, but they don't know who the property belongs to. So I'm like, well, maybe you should contact the the county of Sonoma to find out, somebody has to be paying property taxes on the property if it's privately owned. And he said he's looking into that, but they have not come up with a name yet to contact the private owner to deal with getting those trees down, because that's, there again, fire danger, and if they did fall, they would block the roadway because they're pretty tall. So those are my two main concerns. Thank you for listening, and
So, just to clarify,
Sure.
you did point those trees out so Hector knows what the trees are.
yes, I went to
Okay,
City Hall
thank you.
directly and filled a work order, and I just happened to run into him today at Furba Park while I was walking, and we talked about it. And he did call me back this afternoon. He said he would follow up with Tammy at City Hall to see if they could actually get the name of who owns the property.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So,
Appreciate it.
City Manager, you want to address that real quick?
Yes, please, Mayor, members of council. I take the concerns expressed by Ms. Perry seriously, and I want to assure you that myself, as well as City Engineer Mark Rincon, will take a walk up the trail with Hector and determine some appropriate measures that we can employ to address the issue of folks congregating around that area, and determine if it's feasible to provide some lighting in that area, and also look at options for potentially fencing. And we'll consult with Ms. Perry and ensure that she's aware of that. Maybe we'll, if we can, maybe walk up there with you and
That
accompany
would
you
be,
on that.
yeah, that would be great. I'm available for the rest of the week, and then I'm back to work.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, would anyone else like to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to proclamations. We have one proclamation this evening. It's a proclamation for Joyce Mann for her 15 years of service to the community through the Sculpture Trail. It's a pleasure to be able to read this and present it. It's a proclamation of the City of Cloverdale, County of Sonoma, State of California, presented to Joyce Mann for her 15 years of service to the community of Cloverdale through the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail. Whereas Joyce Mann has organized the Cloverdale Historical Society's Sculpture Trail since its inception 15 years ago in 2003. And whereas Joyce was instrumental in Cloverdale's entrance to the realm of public art in 2003, and whereas Joyce coordinates the year-round Sculpture Trail exhibit known as the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail with a group consisting primarily of volunteers with sculptures changing each May, and whereas Joyce's leadership role, Cloverdale's reputation as an arts destination has grown, as sculptors from across the country have entered and participated in the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail. Whereas the development of a free, self-guided audio walking tour of the Sculpture Trail was coordinated by Joyce, and whereas the high quality of the sculptures displayed enhances the experience of downtown Cloverdale for both residents and visitors, and whereas the City Council recognizes Joyce's contributions to the beauty and enjoyment of the City of Cloverdale and wishes to acknowledge and thank her for her efforts. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Joseph J. Paula, Mayor of the City of Cloverdale, and the entire City Council do hereby declare our appreciation of and extend our gratitude to Joyce Mann for her role in bringing art through the Cloverdale Sculpture Trail to the streets of Cloverdale. It's a pleasure to conduct.
I want to thank the City Council for this wonderful presentation that you have given me this evening. But I also want to point out that we have had 15 years of sculptures in Cloverdale due to due to the support of the community, the business community, residents of Greater Cloverdale, city government. We're all volunteers. We have no paid staff whatsoever. So I want to thank all the volunteers. I've done that in the past, but I'd like to do it again. Volunteers and businesses, sponsors, donors. It's been a wonderful 15 years, and let's hope we get it going for another 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move on to item number 2, presentation by Jay Jaspers, Sonoma County Water Agency on the Porter Valley Relicensing Project and Sustainable Groundwater Management Act.
Mayor, members of council, if I can, just take a brief moment to introduce both Jay Jaspers, the Chief Engineer and Director of Groundwater Management, as well as Don Seymour, Principal Engineer with the Sonoma County Water Agency. A little bit of background on this item. Most recently, the city engineer and myself attended the Upper Russian River Managers Meeting, and there was quite a bit of discussion amongst that group about both the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the Potter Valley Relicensing Project, both of which have potential to impact our water supply here in the city of Cloverdale. And we thought it would be valuable. These are very technical subject matters, and we thought it would be beneficial if Mr. Jaspers came to the city council and gave you an overview on these two technical subjects, recognizing that they are fairly complex and involved. This would be an opportunity to really kind of give you an overview and presentation of these issues. And if the council so decides after the presentation you want more information, both the city engineer and myself are more than happy to coordinate with Jay to get you further and additional information on this item. But with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be here. And as City Manager Kelly mentioned, these are both very extensive long-term programs. We're going to give you a very high-level view and the status of both of these projects. I'm going to talk about the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which we call SGMA for shorthand. And recently, the state of California reprioritized all 517 groundwater basins in California, and that has significant consequences in terms of complying with this act, and Sonoma County loomed large in their reprioritization. So I'll touch on that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Don to talk about the Potter Valley hydroelectric relicensing project, where Eel River water is diverted into the East Fork of the Russian River. He's going to report to you on the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission process for PG&E's license. That's one process that's ongoing, as well as Representative Huffman's ad hoc meetings regarding this project. So just turning to SGMA quickly. SGMA is a statewide law that was passed and signed by the legislature and signed by the governor of fall of 2014 and became enacted January 2015. Sonoma County has 14 groundwater basins in the county, and the law requires that basins that are categorized as medium priority or high priority have to comply with the requirements of SGMA. In Sonoma County, to date, that has meant that 3 groundwater basins out of the 14 are medium priority basins. Those are the Santa Rosa Plain, Sonoma Valley, and Petaluma groundwater basins. Our agency and several other cities and the county and other water agencies have been working for the last 2.5, 3 years to comply. We've developed new agencies to manage groundwater in those basins and are embarking on the studies and planning necessary. It's quite an extensive process. One of the requirements of SGMA was that the state was required to come back and reprioritize all 517 groundwater basins again. The initial law, when it was enacted, used prioritization that the state had for each of the basins prior to SGMA. And the law said after a certain period of time, the state must come back with new methodology, new criteria, if it deemed appropriate, and reprioritize all of the basins again statewide. So they've just completed, the State Department of Water Resources has just completed that process, and they issued their draft findings. So these are draft findings, I want to emphasize that. And as I mentioned earlier, Sonoma County, the results of this were that 3 additional basins were moved up in priority into medium. So this is a map that shows the affected groundwater basins, and you see the green groundwater basins of the existing, Santa Rosa Plain, Petaluma, and Sonoma that we've been working on. They had been previously medium priority basins. Each of them got bumped up in this reprioritization to high priority. In addition, 3 new priority, or what were low priority basins, got elevated to medium, which means, again, medium, now you have to comply with the law. So it's a very significant change in status. And so those 3 basins are shown in that kind of pink, magenta color. There's the Wilson Grove Highlands in the Sebastopol and West area. There's the Healdsburg, what's called the Healdsburg area, which is, most of us know, is the Dry Creek area groundwater basin. And then there's the Alexander area, which is most of the Alexander Valley, but you'll see, and you're very fortunate, your city's very fortunate that you're up at the top at what's called, the state considers as a different basin, the Cloverdale area basin. That remained as a very low priority basin. So good news for you, but down the road now, unless this changes, the rest of the Alexander Valley basin will have to comply with SGMA. And this is, I just put this chart up here to illustrate these are again our draft recommendations, but you can see the Alexander area and the Cloverdale area points. And if you actually notice at the bottom, Alexander area had 19.5 points, and the Cloverdale area had even more, 22 points. 14, if you score over 14 points, you're medium priority. If you score over 21 points, you're high priority. So you can see that this groundwater basin, the Cloverdale, would actually score into the high priority, but the state's methodology has 2 caveats that work in your favor. The first is that your groundwater use is, and you can see it there, I've noted it's 4,540 acre feet is what the estimated groundwater use is. That's below 9,500. And so the state has determined that if you are below 9,500 acre feet per year in use, and you don't have any points in category 7 or 8, which are the impact points and the habitat points, which Cloverdale Basin does not, then you're automatically set at very low. Now, if that changes in category 7 or 8, then you would be, the Cloverdale Basin would be a high priority. So I just want to make it clear that this basin, despite the point total, is still considered by the state under these draft regulations as very low. The neighboring Alexander Basin, however, the groundwater use is 15,250 acre feet, so it's not below that exemption, even though they also don't have the impact points under 7 or 8. So right now, that basin is considered medium priority. We are working with several parties, the county, other counties too, and some statewide organizations to comment on the state's findings, the methodology and the data they used. And those comments are due to the state August 20th, and the state is looking to finalize their recommendations by the middle of November. And from there, we'll know what we need to do. If these recommendations stay the same, or if a basin remains in medium priority, then we'll have 2 years to form a new groundwater sustainability agency, a governance structure, and then 3 additional years to develop the full groundwater sustainability plan and then implement it thereafter. So that's where we are right now, and we're busy working with several of our partners on commenting on their methodology and their recommendations. I'm going to turn it over, unless you have any questions now on this, I'm going to turn it over to Don Seymour to talk about Potter Valley project.
1 second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question on the sustainability, creating a sustainability agency. would that cost be burdened strictly by the city of Cloverdale, or would the water agency be helping with that? What's the funding involved for the city to comply?
So I just want to make it clear, there's no need to do that for the city of Cloverdale as long as you remain very low priority.
Right.
So it's a hypothetical question, but I can tell you that in the other 3 basins, we spent close to 2 years negotiating a joint powers authority agreement, forming these new organizations, and the law provides that local public agencies are those agencies that have authority for land use, water supply, or water management have the authority to form or participate in these agencies. And in those 3 basins, we negotiated cost-sharing agreements for funding that, all of the agencies. So Santa Rosa Plain, for example, has 9 entities that fund it, and 6 in Sonoma and 5 in Petaluma Basin. So that's how it works there. But there's a lot of latitude on the funding and the composition of governance.
Okay, so it looks like we're quite a few years away from this.
Yeah, as long as I would say the groundwater stays below 9,500 acre-feet and the impact points, the habitat impact points and the water quality, especially the habitat, don't change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for council?
Not so far.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on the points, the 7 or 8 points, and what are the details behind that?
Yes. So the impact points under category 7 are, see if I remember them all, saline water intrusion, there's water quality. And this is a big issue we have as a global, and it's really hurt us in the other 2 basins. They count as a negative if you have minerals, naturally occurring minerals like iron and manganese, which are not health, toxic or anything like that. They still count those as a negative against you. So that's really come into play into Dry Creek and the Wilson Grove basins, not here. So there's one other impact, escaping my mind now, but then on the habitat, it's really this issue of stream flow and groundwater pumping impacting fishery habitat or sensitive habitat. And I would say that would be something something you want to keep an eye on in particular, because that, if you just get an impact point, then you could be queued up into the next category.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As Jay mentioned, I'm going to give a brief, as I can, summary of the current relicensing of the Potter Valley project. 50-year license for that project is expiring in 2022. PG&E is actively moving forward to relicense that project. However, before I give that update, I'd like to give just a little bit of background information that might be helpful, give some context. This slide up here shows several different time periods of the amount of water that's been transferred on an annual basis, average annual basis, through the project. And that first blue line is from 1922 to 2006. And that time period is important because in 1922, Scott Dam, which forms Lake Pillsbury, was completed. So that became a year-round source of water for the project. And then 2006, FERC amended PG&E's license that added a number of conditions that really changed how much power and water could flow through the project. And as you can see, the cumulative inflow, on that blue line is, so on average, about 150,000 acre-feet of water was being transferred through that project annually. And that made up, that's really a substantial amount of the hydrology for particularly the Upper Russian River. And it's really also very important because during that time frame, the state board issued hundreds of water right permits and licenses which are dependent on that water. In addition, the state board also issued Decision 1610, which is the rules the water agency has to operate the river. So the minimum stream flow requirements, bypass flow requirements. So a lot of regulation was developed with that top blue line. The gold line is from 2007, post the amendments to the FERC license, to 2017. And you can see the annual average transfer is less than 50%. So that's a really significant change in the hydrology to the Russian River. And it's really caused the water agency a lot of challenges in managing minimum stream flow requirements and meeting downstream demands on the upper Russian River. The black line is the transfer for 2018. Obviously, this was a very dry year. This slide is a little complicated, but it was based on a study that the State Water Resources Control Board required the water agency to perform regarding the reliability of Lake Mendocino and the upper Russian River. And where this comes from is some very sophisticated modeling and data sets the water agency developed using 110 years, or 103 years, excuse me, of hydrology. Then that creates the variability, but it uses all the current operating rules that are required for both the Potter Valley project and of the Russian River. And this is what's referred to as an exceedance plot. And the blue line is what we refer to baseline conditions. It's the current operating rules over that 103-year time frame. And what it's showing you is if you go to 50% of the time, the minimum storage in Lake Mendocino would be about 42,000 acre feet or less. And if you go to like the 8%, what it's telling you on the blue line, 80% of the time, it would be about 62,000 acre feet or less. That bottom line is one change we made to the operating condition, and that would be no transfer of water through the Potter Valley project. And as you can see, approximately 62% of the time, there would be no water in Lake Mendocino. It would go dry for some period of time. So the Potter Valley project is really significant for the hydrology and the reliability of the upper Russian River. So as I mentioned, PG&E is actively relicensing the project. They submitted a notice of intent in April of 2017 along with a preliminary application document. Following that, they started holding a number of stakeholder meetings with folks that are interested in the project. So that's the resource agencies with conditioning authority, so NIMS, Cal Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, obviously the counties of Lake County, Humboldt County, Mendocino County, Sonoma County Water Agency, tribal interests, and also a number of environmental interests such as Friends of the Eel River, Cal Trout, Trout Unlimited. And basically, these are the folks that have been really interested in the relicensing of this project. And since then, they've been a number of activities have gone on. FERC has released the scoping document, which sets the boundaries for what they expect PG&E to submit for them to come to a determination of a license, and also preparing their NEPA or their environmental assessment for the project. And based on that, PG&E has, in September 2017, filed a draft proposed scoping document that went through public comment, and a second, PG&E then submitted a second proposed study plan, and that was FERC issued a study plan determination in February, which basically finalized what the study plans would be, and allowing PG&E to move forward. This is quite substantial. There's over 18 studies at a cost of approximately $10 million. So this is going to be about a 2-year process, which leads up to 2020, which is when the final application for the project is due. Of recent note, in May 2018, PG&E, in a letter to the Russian River Eel River Commission, announced that they would be divesting from the project. Up until that point, they'd made it pretty clear that they no longer wanted to operate the project. They are starting an auction process. They anticipate in September that they'll be issuing marketing materials for interested parties to enter into that process. And last week, the Mendocino County Water and Power Authority brought to their commissioners whether they would like to enter into a bilateral negotiation with PG&E. Those commissioners are going back to their member agencies to determine whether they'll actually enter bilateral negotiations. And so in 2020 is the deadline to file a license application with FERC. In parallel with the licensing process, Congressman Huffman has started an ad hoc group. He was convened in the spring of 2017. Most of the participants that are up on the board are the same ones that are participating in the relicensing process. The one member that's not on that I left off that's actually participating also is PG&E. The intent of Congressman Huffman is to try to find some common ground, some consensus on some very challenging and issues that are facing the relicensing, things like fish passage and water supply issues. In January 2018, technical working groups were formed to address these problems and bring recommendations back to the bigger ad hoc group that Congressman Huffman has formed. And what they're hoping is that if there's some consensus on some of these contentious issues, that it would help the relicensing process. These would be recommendations to FERC in the relicensing. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from City Council? Well, thank you for that presentation. Before you leave, I just want to see if anybody any member of the public may have a question. Would anybody like to ask any question on this item? Yes, please come on down, Jason.
If there's just one thing I wanted to add,
Sure.
And I'm hopeful it came across this presentation, is that it's really important for the city of Cloverdale to stay engaged in this issue, particularly because of the importance of the water supply from that project and how it's been relied on the Upper Russian River.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing my question. In regards to some of the variables that can change...
State your name for the record.
Forgive me,
please.
Jason Turner.
Thank you.
For some of the variables that go into us having the very low priority at the moment for the water shed, is there written recommendations for responsible growth within a town that needs to now maybe operate within certain ground acres of water usage annually? And I'm wondering if the water agency has recommended any ideas for responsible growth or how we may engage developers in ideas that we might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to make a comment on that?
Yes, we're not a land use agency, nor do we have authorities for land use. We do work closely with our water contractors, who are cities, as well as the county. So we do work closely with them and provide them planning through our analysis of water supply and water conservation measures, and we do prepare urban water management plans. I'm not sure if the city of Cloverdale is required to submit an urban water management plan, but that's our main urban water management planning. And then we also have other non-urban planning for water use and land use that we work with the County of Sonoma. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Would anybody else like to ask a question on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the public input and bring it back to council. I know that one Councilmember Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your statement of the city of Cloverdale needs to be diligent to what happens to the north more or less prompts this question. You know, we have our straw in the water first. We have it ahead of Hillsburg and to the south of us. I was always told by our city engineer, Coastland, that even if the river was dry in the summertime and we saw nothing, there was cubic feet of water moving underneath that ground surface.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious how deep down that goes, and is that statement correct? I mean, water is still moving underneath those, that dry bed.
There's certainly probably underflow, but that underflow is being fed by recharge from the river. So if you have a number of other wells that are pumping, that underflow is going to could disappear. And it would take a more technical analysis, but it certainly would be very vulnerable to being depleted. Because the river is because the Russian River flows are maintained by releases from Lake Mendocino, there's a massive amount of recharge from the river into that aquifer.
Well, what about Sulphur Creek coming into that just north of the city?
Well, Sulphur Creek, the flows in the summer get pretty low, and so as a source in the winter when flows are high, it's probably reliable. But during the summer when flows drop to a couple CFS, that could be vulnerable.
Because I know the city at some point has done studies, and I realize this is a presentation, I don't mean to drag this out, but the city has done studies on what our water capacity is for single-family residents. So we already have that number somewhere, and I can't say for sure, but I would surely hope we took into account when we did that study the ebbs and the tides of what Lake Mendocino does to the north.
Yeah, if I could just add, Don's right that the river recharges the alluvial aquifer, including the lower stretches of Big Sulphur Creek. And this kind of ties both of these subjects together. If Potter Valley diversions and flows in the Russian River are substantially reduced, this groundwater basin here is going to feel the impact over time, which is then going to trigger the sigma ratings, especially with that depletion of habitat. And so it's something definitely to be mindful of what's going on with your surface water, because it is definitely connected with your groundwater.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember.
Actually, just a request, Mr. Mayor. I think that what I'd like to see us to move forward is a staff report by our city engineer where he can take this information and then answer questions like you were asking, Councilmember Walter, just look at how that's going to affect our plans going forward, the numbers that we have, both from a technical standpoint and also just being involved with and keeping an eye on and being involved with the progress of the Potter Valley project auction. I think that's a point of extreme interest to Cloverdale and extreme in the city, to the city council, where we need to maintain communications with Congressman Huffman's office. It's my feeling, having attended just one of the meetings with Congressman Huffman, he's very aware that this entire region is dependent on this water source, and he's not giving us up, but I think that we need to be more involved in the process. So I would like to see us, from a lobbying standpoint, get more involved in the process as well.
And I'd just like to expand that, and I'd like to ask our city manager to look. I think we should be at those ad hoc meetings. We should have a representative participating and bringing back, and we should be actively engaged. If we're not, I don't see our name on there.
Yeah, I would suggest you call John Driscoll. He's in Congressman Huffman's office in Arcata, and he's kind of the lead on this.
Yeah, so we should have one of our representatives there and reporting back, so we're well aware of what's going on.
We have started going to the Upper Russian River Managers meetings, and also my chair and the staff member from Russian River Watershed Association have started attending regularly, and I believe Mark's going to be coming with us to those as well. So
good. Okay. Yes, Councilman.
I'm just curious, since you guys are much closer to this issue than we are. I toured the Eel River Diversion Complex years ago. I mean, my God, 15 years ago, 16. And it seems like every once in a while this comes up. They don't want us to have the water. We want the water down here. Watching it from you guys' standpoint, how's the talk going? Should we be worried? I would just assume that this would happen.
So I would recommend and suggest to stay on top of this. It is a very contentious project.
It is.
It's very polarizing. You have folks that are bent on having the project removed. There's a lot of interest in fish passage above Scott Dam. There's a lot of information that suggests there's several hundred miles of tributary that would be very suitable and important for steelhead. So even the resource agencies are fixated on fish passage. Now, that could take several different forms. That could be a trap and haul, where you collect the fish, take them up into the tribs, release them, collect them as they come out. However, a volitional, which means unaided fish passage, like you through a fish ladder or something like that, is really being pushed. And those type of projects could really change the water supply balance. I should also mention, Potter Valley project is not a moneymaker. It loses a lot of money. There is some power being generated. The real true value of that project is water supply. I don't know if when you were at the powerhouse, if you noticed, there's this one little transmission line coming down the valley, and there's this big old East Branch Russian River flowing at 100 plus CFS. Mm-hmm. The real value of that project is the water supply, and probably if the project is going to continue operating, that water is going to have to be monetized, and the folks that benefit from it are going to have to figure out a way of probably paying for it, for that project or some remainder of that project to keep operating. But you're right, it's very polarizing.
It is indeed.
Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is it, I promise.
We need to move on here.
Okay. I want to say maybe 8 years ago, the city of Cloverdale engaged through our city attorneys, Myers Nave, a water specialist attorney, I guess, and we fought for our water rights that go back to the early 1800s. That were granted to the city of Cloverdale to sustain its growth with no limitation. And, if something's happening to the north to impede our rights, I think that document might be helpful. So what I'd like staff, and I don't think there's any hurry that you have to jump right to it, but I'd like to see that report from Myers Nave on our water rights and how they affect situations like this. And I want to say that was about 8 years ago, Carol?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
But
Thank you. I think that's an excellent idea.
If I'm understanding it, that's assuming there's water. And that's what I think what you're saying. If the water's diverted and it's down, there won't be water.
Yeah, but we have the
Well, no
rights,
reason.
and they're taking it away from us, so, by diverting it.
It does have to be there, but I just want to add one more thing. And, this process is going to be slow moving. It's not going to be a fast process. Even hydroelectric projects that are hydroelectric projects that are not contentious can take 10 or 15 years to relicense. So this is going to be a marathon on where it ends up, likely 20 years.
Thank you.
Or more.
Yeah.
Well, there is a really strong movement up north to stop the Eel River diversion, and that would really hurt us badly down here. So you're right, we better pay attention.
Great.
And we're happy to help with that.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We can probably move this, I would think. The screen? We're done? Take a minute? Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Great. Excellent. Ready. Well, thank you. The next item is consent calendar. All items under consent will be considered together by one action of the council unless any council member or member of the public requests that an item be removed and considered separately. And we have Councilmember Brigham, who's going to recuse herself on item number 3. Would any other council member like anything removed? Okay. Would any member of the public like anything pulled? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept the consent calendar as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Walter, second by Vice Mayor Russell. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Russell?
Aye.
Councilmember Walter?
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Mayor Paula?
Aye.
With Councilmember Brigham recusing.
Only on item number 3.
Correct. You were not doing it for a separate vote?
No. No. So you want to take her vote on 4 through 8?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Got that? Okay, the next item is communications. And we have a citizen request for a resolution condemning the Trump administration inhumane policy of separating children from their parents as immigration policy. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. We received this communication from a concerned citizen, and it was placed under communication just to get your consensus whether you'd like this placed on the agenda for your future consideration. It's really at the council's decision whether you would like to agendize the request. If there's a consensus in support of the request, staff will bring back a resolution for your formal consideration. Really, all staff is looking for at this point is just a general direction from the council whether you support bringing a resolution forward as requested.
Great, thank you. And I see Mr. Bagby's back there. Did you want to speak to this? Come up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Bagby. I put in a request as a citizen attempting to express my views on what the Trump administration is doing on immigration policy in this nation and how that immigration policy, specifically of separating children from their parents at border crossings. My feelings on the matter are that I view it as an item that is not necessarily political. It is an item that should be looked at from a humanitarian perspective, and I felt that it was an item. It was a perspective that the city, at the city level, could take a stand and say that the crux of what I was after is this is not who we are. And that I wanted to take a stand and just say, no, enough. And despite various reversals by the administration, attempting to clarify, this is an administration-caused fiasco that reflects poorly on all of us, and I thought that we, collectively as a community, could take a stand and say, no, this is not who we are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll bring it to council. Comments, yes.
No.
This is not an action item, it's just to give direction to our city, so who would like to start the conversation?
Well,
Councilmember Walter.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. You know, a few years ago, again, I'm going back maybe 10 years, when Bob Jen was on the city council, a similar matter came before the city council. And I thought we, as a city council, we basically felt that we would not send any letters of condemning or approving what an administration in Washington does, for the simple reason that we're concerned about Cloverdale, Sonoma County, and the state of California. And quite frankly, those three entities give us more than enough to do. We could write letters condemning this administration all day long. There's no end to it. My biggest fear if we do something like this is we're once again dividing the community. I think while I'm no fan of Mr. Trump, I'm sure there's some in the community that are. And if in fact he should by chance do something great, for example with North Korea, getting them to do away with their nukes, and be more humane to their citizens, then what? Do we write him a letter of congratulations for the work that he's done? I think this just divides the community, and I don't think that the city council, any letters that we send or resolutions, is going to affect the administration at all. And I think we all agree with you that that is not humane. That is not the right thing to do. But for us as a city to get involved with it, I don't think we have the time to send staff on a fact-finding missions to come back with the information we need. I just don't think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Any other council? Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I understand Councilmember Walter's point, and I remember that other situation 10 years ago. I have to confess that I feel about this that there are some things that transcend what we've done in the past. I feel strongly that I agree that there are times when you need to step out of the norm and say this does not represent the people as we know the people of Cloverdale. And I don't believe it does. Whatever your point of view, whatever your political point of view, so far, I haven't talked to anybody and nobody has told me that they think this was the right way to go. Whether you have problems with immigration or you don't, there comes a point at which you have to stand up. And I think part of the problem we have sometimes as citizens is that we're so comfortable being here that we don't stand up. I would like to see, if Mr. Babby could do that, a sample resolution. Actually, I think doing some research on this would be fairly easy. There has been so much discussion of it and such intense feeling about it that if we had a good resolution brought to our city manager, for example, that could be edited in some way or we could add to as a council, that might work and without overburdening the staff. But I'm certainly willing to go through with it. This offends me so greatly that I'm willing to step out of the norm.
Thank you. Councilmember Brigham, anything?
Oh, we could write a long letter of things I don't like about what Trump is doing, but it would be probably too long. How about women's rights? Throw that in there too. Throw a few more things in there, and I would certainly sign it. Is it who we are? No, it's not. Do you want to get really specific? This is one I could get behind, but there are so many that I would like to, like Gus said, you know, it's like I could write a letter every day to, well, I shouldn't say the Republican Party more, I should just say Trump. Is this one okay with me? Sure. Do you want to go further? Hell, I'll sign further. But it would be almost unending for me.
Good.
Up
Thank
to you guys.
Thank you. Councilmember?
Well, I would remind this council that you signed a resolution in support of gay marriage when it was pivotal and very important. So this council actually does have a history of standing up for what is right and standing up for human rights. And I'd also remind members of this council that while we may disagree or agree with politically with the current administration, this is a moral question. This is a human rights question. This is a violation of international law. And if communities don't stand up for fairness and the fair and equal implementation of our international law and our own laws, why are we even here? So I think it's very important that we take a stand on this particular issue and say, no more.
Thank you. Well, I have mixed feelings on it. Certainly, I support the concept, and I could support a resolution. But I do agree there's so many resolutions we should be writing of things that are going on that I totally disagree with. But I agree with Councilmember Bagby that this is just morally wrong. It's a violation, and it shouldn't be tolerated. And I have no qualms at all with saying that. So I guess we'll poll the council. Do we want to put this agendized? Got one yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
You know, just so it...
If we can bring this back with a resolution at their next meeting. Go ahead and finish your conversation.
Thank you. Just so it has some clout, I'll get behind it as well. To show that the city council was split on this, I think, would weaken the message. So Jeff, I'll go ahead and support this as well, depending on how it's written.
Yeah. Okay, so to come back for further discussion and possible adoption.
Except, that, Mr. Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
I would like to urge, if it's possible, that we get some sample language.
Yeah, maybe if you could pass out the resolution, once you get a draft by email individually, council members for input, and get it back to you. And it won't be, don't respond to all, it'll be directly between city manager and
Right.
individuals, and you can come back with a final document. Okay? And I would suggest we put that under consent unless, and if somebody has a question, we can pull it. Okay? Very good. Okay, is that acceptable? Okay, good. So we will move on to item number 10, presentation and discussion of a draft ordinance regulating the transportation network company drivers living within the city limits. City manager.
Mayor, council members, the agenda packet included, or the agenda report included in your agenda packet provides an overview of a draft transportation network company ordinance. The purpose of the ordinance is to require companies like Uber and Lyft to obtain a business license from the city of Cloverdale, at least in terms of those Uber and Lyft drivers that are residents within the city of Cloverdale. They'd be required to, under this proposed ordinance, obtain a city-issued business license. The ordinance was reviewed by the Finance, Admin, and Police Committee and recommended for your consideration. Tonight is not a formal introduction. We just wanted to bring it forward for your review and input. And if council supports the ordinance as included in your packet, we'll bring it back for formal introduction.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
No, I like the idea, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, I'll open this up for public input. Would any member of the public like to address the city council on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public input, bring it back to city council. Any questions? Okay, I do have one question. It talks a little bit about keeping the driver and passenger safety a paramount goal, which is critical in my view. My question is, are we, through the police department, going to do an independent review, background check on these individuals, or are we depending on the state organization to fulfill that? Are we going to confirm that it's been done, though, at some point? When they come in for a license, are they just going to write a check, give them a license, and they're good for a year, or is it going to go through the police to do some kind of verification that they're up and up?
Currently, the ordinance does not speak to a requirement for a background check.
Well, taxi drivers, I believe we do.
We're pretty limited.
Right.
The PUC basically takes over this whole area of the law.
No, I understand
The one
that.
area where it's very clear.
No, I understand that. My question is, are we going to verify with the PUC that this person?
We could certainly verify.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we recreate it. I'm just saying that we verify.
We could attempt to.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if that's going to be, we could do some research to find out how we can do that.
Right.
Because the PUC puts that obligation on the company to do the background check. So we would have to figure out a way to verify that that individual has passed.
There's
and that
got to
they
be a
are-
way that we
yeah,
could get
that they are an
verification.
actual driver to verify.
And that's
who
all
they
I
are.
was getting to. Otherwise, they come and get a license and we really don't know.
Right.
So there should be a mechanism, and that's all I'm asking.
We'll do some research to find out how we
Thank
can
you.
do that.
I would suggest checking literally with Uber and Lyft, because these people are not employees, as we know, for these companies. And they are whatever, independent contractors or something, and it's possible that they've already done those things. I would assume they have.
They have to, yeah.
Yeah, so if they're willing to give them, since they're,
Okay.
they're part of their profit picture, they might be willing to let us know that, yes, we checked on such and such a date. That might save a lot of time and energy.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a consensus that we want this brought back? Okay. Good. So to come back in a future meeting.
We'll conduct the additional research regarding the background check process through the CPUC, and we'll bring it back and we'll formally introduce the ordinance and if there are any changes, we'll highlight those for the council's benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 11. Consideration and adoption of resolution approving the purchase of 2 new vehicles, 2018 Chevy Silverado 2500 heavy-duty and utility maintenance service vehicle, and a 2018 Ford Explorer. City Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is an ongoing effort to replace our rolling stock of vehicles that have aged. What I have here before you is 2 resolutions for 2 separate purchases, one for a Ford and one for the Chevrolet. And they're 2 local dealers, as you noted in the reports. And again, attachment 3 shows our planned replacement for all our vehicles. Of course, this is a plan. It gets pushed out. But these 2 vehicles were approved during the budget process, and they are in the current budget. So fiscally, we can take these purchases on. And so if you have any questions about their use, one is for the Parks Department, the other one's for engineering. One's a utility vehicle, the other one's an SUV.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the public like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment, bring it back to city council. We have 2 resolutions. Somebody like to offer the first one?
I'll offer the first one. City of Cloverdale, City Council Resolution Number 048, 2018. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale awarding a contract for purchase of 1 new Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD utility maintenance service vehicle and associated necessary equipment to the McConnell Chevrolet of Healdsburg in an amount not to exceed $45,000.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Bagby. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Walter.
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Mayor Pauly.
Aye. Okay, we have the second resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer the second resolution by title only, please. City of Cloverdale City Council Resolution Number 049, 2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cloverdale awarding a contract for purchase of 1 new Ford Explorer to the Henry Curtis Ford of Petaluma in an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Brigham.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Walter.
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby.
Aye.
Mayor Pauly.
Aye. Very good. Moving right along. Item number 12, action appointing City of Cloverdale's voting delegate and alternate voting delegate for the 2018 League of California Cities Annual Business Meeting, which is in September. City Manager.
Mayor, members of council, the League of California City will hold its 2018 annual conference in Long Beach on September 12th, 13th, and 14th. As part of the annual conference, the league holds its annual business meeting. As part of the annual business meeting, there's a vote by all the delegates to take action on league initiatives for the coming year. What the league requires is that the names of each jurisdiction's voting delegates be designated by the city council and submitted on the form that's included in your packet. The council is allowed to designate a voting delegate and up to 2 alternates. And this item was presented to you so you could make your choice in terms of who you'd like your delegate and alternates to be for that meeting. If there is no council members that will be in attendance, you're not required to otherwise designate a voting delegate. But our understanding is that Councilmember Bagby has expressed an interest and has signed up to attend the league meeting.
I have to go because there's also a legislative meeting on that Wednesday. And then I'm also voting on another item on Thursday, so.
So would somebody like to nominate her? I'll go ahead and make that nomination, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So any discussion on that?
Nope.
Okay,
Well,
so
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to know who else is going besides Councilmember Bagby?
normally I've been to all of them, but I'm not sure I'm going to be going this year.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you are the one.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. All right, and
Thank you.
the other issue I have, I just want to bring to your attention, unfortunately, they've scheduled that legislative meeting for 9 a.m. on Wednesday, which is the night after our council meeting. I don't know how I can possibly get there, so I'm considering, being absent for that council meeting, just to let you know.
And that would be the first council meeting of September?
Correct.
Yeah,
That would be
so
the 11th.
we'll talk on that
Yeah.
one, yes. Thank you. And thank you for letting
And
us know.
thank you to the league for doing that scheduling. Yes.
You got it. Aim to please.
Just as follow-up,
Thank you.
staff's recommending that by motion, the council designate your representative or voting delegate for the league and provide direction to fill out the form and complete the form and submit it to the league,
Okay.
which is required by the end of August.
Very good. So do you need a motion? I think-
Motion is
Okay, so who would like to, I'll introduce the motion.
Second.
Got a motion second, Mayor. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Start with the airport. Chair of Councilmember Bagby.
Mr. Mayor, we will meet on October 2nd.
Okay, great. Finance, Administration, and Police. Chair, Councilmember Brigham.
We did meet on June the 28th, and we talked about the Transportation Network's ride-sharing ordinance that you guys have already looked at, homeless encampments, and the agreement with the Red Cross for sheltering operations at the senior center. And I think the big one that's come up and is very active in the community now, I'm getting lots of emails on a daily basis about the homeless issue.
Yeah.
Down by the river, and so I've gotten a little bit involved, but I'm thinking that maybe we are going to need to form an ad hoc committee for that. Somebody to stay on top of that situation, but
Well, it's
what
been-
do you think?
It was referred at a prior meeting to the police finance and with the recommendation that they may want to consider. So that's certainly within your parameters to set one up and work in collaboration with the county and all the other social agencies that are available. So certainly that's doable. Yeah,
I just think it's getting to be a big enough issue
that should be focused. Yeah.
and there's going to be more interfacing with the county now and the railroad, and sure, Chris is just thrilled.
So if you could maybe, bring that to your committee and form one, that would be great, and just please keep the council informed. But we're all seeing the emails, but I know our city manager's on top of that.
No, it's just easier if it's an ad hoc committee to go
Right.
back and forth and meet with people, and
Well, what I'm suggesting is, like what we did when the swimming pool, the city school subcommittee, we formed an ad hoc
Right.
within our own subcommittee.
I'm
to
saying.
deal with. So I would recommend you do that, yeah.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest, because I think that's an excellent idea, and I had notes on something rather similar myself, but the Health Action Chapter is forming quite nicely, and this is a topic that comes up regularly. So we might look at regular communications with them, because we are, I'm glad to say, in that chapter, a group of a cross-section of the social agencies here, government,
you could be
health,
helpful. Yeah.
could be really helpful, yeah.
Okay, good.
And the collaboration effort's really important because there's
It is.
significant state money that's being released this year, and it's going to take a joint effort for us to be able to be part of getting some of that to deal with our problems, so.
Our next meeting for the Finance Committee is Thursday at 2 o'clock, this
All right.
Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Community Development, the chair is Councilmember Bagby.
We next meet on August 21st.
Okay. Public Works, chair is Vice Mayor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met today and had, I think, a busy and very positive agenda. I'd like to start by letting everyone know that the request for a four-way stop that we received from Ms. Johnson on Washington is proceeding. I was very happy to hear that, because I know that's something of great concern to that neighborhood.
Sorry, which intersection?
It's a
Washington and.
Yeah, Washington and,
That
yeah,
was,
Washington and.
That was.
It really is important,
Mariah Love.
particularly as we go back to school. There were also a number of items, some of which we covered today, and I know our engineer can jump in here, but we discussed the basics of the purchasing of the vehicles. It was also valuable to obtain an update on the Vista View slip out, get a general idea of what was going on. I don't know if Councilmember Walter wants to add anything to that, or our engineer does. We could really get involved in this all night, but what I appreciated was the focus on it and the awareness of all the various and sundry aspects of that project, which is very important, particularly as we talk about the different elements of it. Also, there was a discussion, an update on our annual increment permit fee, and that will be coming back to council with some suggestions about how to update it and make it more business friendly, and at the same time not do anything negative in terms of the city budget. And we also, I was really interested in 2 budget adjustment items, one for a security gate at our water treatment plant. And speaking of homelessness, we have had some aspects of trespass, and as the report to the subcommittee pointed out, security is absolutely essential at the water plant.
It is.
And so there is a very good plan for putting in a much better security gate and securing it, and I think that it really made me feel positive. We also talked about the air conditioning unit in the police department, and I will tell you that if there's any group of people I do not want to have unhappy, it's the police department. Particularly if it's 112 in there.
No.
If for no other reason than that when you're talking about what they're doing, they need to be comfortable. And also, our computers need to be protected. So there was some very good homework done on that, I felt, with reasonable cost. We did discuss, it was brought up, and I believe it was Councilmember Walter who brought up what happens when we relocate and have a new facility. And the general agreement was, okay, that's then, but we've got to take care of now. There's no two ways about it. We don't have an option. Last but not least, this was something else that was very well discussed, and that was a prescription drug prohibition. We're talking about a safe meds program, basically. And here, things can get a little more complicated. Is there anything particular that you want the council to be aware of or the public to be aware of?
Yeah, don't flush your medicine.
I was about to say, yeah, the safe meds is basically don't flush it. Return it to our local pharmacy. CVS does not accept returns.
Cloverdale Pharmacy does,
yeah. It's our local pharmacy, Cloverdale Pharmacy. And last but not least, we had a discussion of the Skyview Street Trailhead project and completion of some things that were not included in the original bid. And that's about it. That pretty much wraps up, but it was a good meeting. And the best part of the meeting was I got to meet a young lady over there, we all did, who is our...
Hannah.
Yeah, hello, Hannah. She's our intern at Public Works. Stand up and say hi to everybody. This is Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
Welcome, Hannah.
Okay,
Thank you.
you for that report. Okay, the next one is Joint City Fire District, and that would be mine. And our next meeting is August 13th at 6 p.m. It'll be at the Cloverdale Fire District headquarters. The Joint City Fire District, which is also mine, at the next meeting, September 17th at 5 o'clock, will be at City Hall Conference Room. So moving down, we'll go down to council reports. We have 3 of them in the packet. Does anybody have anything they want to add or elaborate on?
I just
Yes.
have one thing. We've set the 10 goals for the year, and 7 of them ended up on my committees out of the 10. So I've been looking through them, and I'm going to suggest at the next meeting setting up ad hoc committees for many of these issues and looking at the strengths that certain council members have. I would think that's how I'm approaching it.
Good.
But we will talk about it a little more at the Finance Committee meeting, this next one on Thursday. But I think it's time to start that, because there's no
Yes.
way that I can do 7 of them out of the 10.
No, and it was never intended for one committee to do all of
Exactly.
them. Yeah. No, so that's good. Thank you for that. And we'll
But that's how I plan on putting it, as an ad hoc
Yeah,
for all of them.
which makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of
Thank you.
sense, it does.
Okay, any other comments? Yes?
Just, actually, I have a good of the order item. We're
Well,
ready to move on.
We're
to
not
that.
quite
Yeah,
there
yeah,
yet.
when we're ready.
Okay. Anything else on subcommittee reports? No.
If I might,
Yes.
very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank our city clerk who duplicated the greenhouse gas inventory report that I brought for everybody. I know I could have given a link for something, but it's a lot better if you have it in your hand. You can't tell me that you didn't have a chance to read it. There is information here from Sonoma County, and particularly from the Regional Climate Protection Authority, which I chair, on Cloverdale. And I am aware of the fact that some of our emissions went up, but for Cloverdale, I think the board, from their reaction, pretty much understood, in spite of all of the work that we do, that, as I always say, we drive further than anybody else. And whenever we have even a slight increase in the economy and a slight increase, as we have had, in fact, good increase in our number of people here, our population, it's going to go up a bit. It wasn't staggering, it wasn't terrifying, but it was a bit of a bump. There's a lot of good work being done, and I think what I like about the report is you can zip through it pretty easily and learn a lot, and it's not filled with jargon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to legislative report. Anything from legislation, city attorney? No? No? All right, we'll move on to city manager report.
Mayor, council members, just wanted to provide the council just a brief report that through the mayor, there was a request from the American Lung Association to take up an issue of on diesel emissions, and that matter was referred to the Regional Climate Protection Authority for review and consideration as part of their overall climate action plan, and we're still waiting for feedback from RCPA on that particular issue.
If I might, the executive director's on vacation. I think she's coming back on the 27th, so that's why there's a delay.
Can I just ask, what was the nature of their inquiry, or was it for Cloverdale specifically, or for the region on diesel emissions, or?
They were asking for a proclamation on restricting diesel emissions within our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, the Air Board does a lot of work around diesel. I just wonder if it's more applicable, because they have grants for reducing, and most of the diesel in the area is tractor emissions, which is in the agricultural area surrounding Cloverdale. So I'm just trying to figure out what their point is.
Well, you're welcome to, maybe you could send her a copy of the request.
Yeah, you could send me, because the Air Board might be interested in participating as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, city attorney, any report? No? All right. Moving right along here, we'll go to council direction on future agenda items. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Just very quickly, I'd like to see if it's possible for staff, particularly our city manager, to update the public on what is going on in terms of the 3-month deadline that we brought up during the cannabis dispensary review. I get questions all the time, and I don't really have the answers. So if our attorney and our senior staff can work on its highest level staff, that would be kind of helpful. It really would. And I think the public wants it, and I certainly do. So I know that I'm aware of exactly what's going on and what's happening. I'm not scratching my head.
Right. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for that inquiry. Staff is planning to bring forward a discussion item at your next meeting on August 14th to get the council's input on and discuss the current commercial cannabis ordinance. It'll be an opportunity for the council to discuss what some of the key issues that have come up since your last review and discussion over the ordinance in April, to address some of the changes that have occurred, particularly with respect to the state regulatory processes and the state emergency regulations, but some of the other issues that have been brought up relative to dispensary zoning, setbacks, et cetera. So we'll be closely working with the city attorney to outline what the key issues are and bring that back for council's discussion and input, whether council would like staff to make any amendments, changes, revisions, or updates to the commercial cannabis ordinance.
Good, maybe we could, if we have individual questions, perhaps we can send them to you and, to cover them? Okay, that'd be great.
Staff will reach out via email with identification of issues and ask for your
Yeah, just
your
if there's something
feedback.
that, because there are a couple of things that people bring up constantly, and I think they're very important, and I don't have the answer. Thank you.
So to be forthcoming, and we'll decide whether it's going to be the next meeting or not based on the size of the agenda as you and I meet and talk about that. Okay? So anything else, future agenda items?
Yes.
Yes.
Just upon further reflection, I'm just wondering if the council members would agree it might be a good idea to put the Potter Valley and the groundwater issue on the planning CDA, the standing items. Do you have any thoughts on that? Just the subcommittee can probably do a pretty good job of monitoring that and then coming back to you when there are things that we all need to be aware of. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds reasonable to me.
You think the planning or the public works?
I'm thinking planning CDA.
Yes, that'll be good on theirs.
If you wanted me to take, you're
Okay.
getting
Item
it
number
on
8.
both because you're on that one as well.
Yeah, I'm on that one too.
Right after you clean up the homeless thing. could you-
But
I can work on that.
I think that's something that we could take on. But then also,
Okay.
I'd requested that the city engineer reflect on the report. But maybe we can start at the subcommittee with that as well, and then bring it to the council when it's baked.
Sounds
I
good.
will say that I did enjoy the tour.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of an interesting tour, and it was so long ago that Paul Kelly was on that bus
Oh,
with
my
me.
goodness.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get up there myself the next one, so.
Mhm. It's interesting what they did
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
And I can see why they're bitching.
But it's a water project, it's not an electricity project,
You're
and they're out of that
100%
business,
right.
so, yeah.
Anything else? So you got that, city manager, as far as the subcommittee? Okay, great. And so, good to the order? Did you have a?
That was my
That
item.
was your other item? Okay, so we will go ahead and adjourn to our next regular meeting, which will be Tuesday, August 14th. Closed session tentatively will start at 5, but that may be rolled back a little earlier. But you'll be notified. And the public session starts at 6 here at the Performing Arts. We are adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you, staff. Thank you for being here.